Okie dokie. We've got the weekly roundup going on. Monday, Parshas Kedoshim, Rosh Chodesh ER, day 2. And what do we got going on? Sfiras Omer. This month is full of, as a mitzvah every single day, which is unique. And ER is a Rosh Tevis, is a acronym for Ani Hashem Rafecha. I am Hashem that heals you, because in this month Hashem healed everybody who came out of Egypt that needed healing. So somebody was missing, God forbid, a limb or had any sort of ailment or malady. Hashem cured him of it. Miracles just happen. No big deal. In preparation for the giving of the Torah, that's why some of the blessings we have in the morning are, we thank Hashem for certain things. Zoykif Gefufi, Malbush Arumim. You heal the bowed. Zoykif Gefufi means like you literally straighten the bowed. Well, it's referring to there are people who were hunched over in the times of in the desert, and Hashem helped them. That's one of the reasons. Malbush Arumim gave us clothing. Kept us clothed in that period of time. A lot of the blessings come from that period of time. And we know, according to Kabbalah, that Hashem doesn't create anything new. When there's a miracle that happens in time, it's not like Hashem decided on that day, 1946, whatever miracle happened for Joe Schmo, I'm going to give him a miracle at that moment. No. Time was always, that miracle always existed. Miracles always exist. Whatever's supposed to happen always existed, always exists. However, it doesn't pop up off the ground, so to speak, pop out of the ground, doesn't reveal itself until a certain period of time. Torah existed even before creation. Torah existed throughout creation. But the world wasn't ready to receive it like we did on Shavuos, on the 6th day of Sivan. That's when the world was prepared, so to speak. The world was a vessel fitting for it to be received. Pop out of the ground, make its way down to this physical world. Tisha B'Av, for example, is a sad day. Why is it a sad day? It's not a sad day because of all of the negativity that happened. The first temple was destroyed, second temple was destroyed, whatever, all the other terrible things that happened. But it is a day of, even before all those bad things happened, it was a day that was designated for, it wasn't designated, it's like a day that attracts negativity. You learn the deeper meanings behind it, that really there's tremendous good in it, but it has to enclose itself in negativity, which we'll save for a Kabbalah class. It's a basic concept in Chassidus and Kabbalah. So where was I going with this? Oh, the idea that ER is a month of healing. It's nothing to do so much with ER and the fact there's an acronym that Hashem healed us, all these different things. It was always a time that was fitting for healing. So any of us that need healing, we all need healing in something, one place or another. Now is the time to ask Hashem. It doesn't have to just be a physical, although for sure in a physical healing. Yaakov Avinu said to God, you know how I know you're going to be my God? If you give me lechem le'echol, if you give me food to eat, and beged lilbush, and clothes to wear, then I'll know you're really my God. If you're just some God that could do some spiritual stuff, mumbo jumbo, great. Okay, that's cool. You're just like any other God, so to speak. Yeah, there are a lot of gods that can do things spiritually, he's saying. But if you can actually be involved in my physical life, then you'll be my God. So we want God to take care of us physically, not just spiritually. But physically also means psychologically, mentally, and of course spiritually. But most of all, physically. Hashem should heal us physically in this month, and we should take advantage. Okay. Rambam. The Rambam this week talks about testimony, edus, testimony. We know that we have a mitzvah that says it says in this week's parsha, not in this week's parsha. It says in maybe it is in this week's parsha actually. In Vayikra, when is in this week's parsha? Yeah, and he should be a witness. And if someone should be a witness, they should see or they should hear something, and he does not testify, he will bear his sin, which means you have to testify. If you witness something, you have to testify. You have to come to court and testify about it, provided it's something to do with capital punishment, some sort of capital crime. However, if it's with regards to financial issues, if you see something financially, you wait for the court to bring you in. We spoke a lot about in Rambam. We try to do arbitration. We try to settle. That's the most thing. The best thing to try to do is make settlements. King David, one of the great things about King David was that almost all matters that were going to be brought to a court, he stopped it before it went to the court. He was able to find a pshara, which means some sort of common ground, a settlement. He was able to make a settlement beforehand. That's the proper Jewish approach. Obviously, that's an approach that we have. What do we have? Bargain. You can make a bargain, a plea bargain, or whatever in modern day courts. So Torah very much is in favor of not going to court. There were fees involved. Even back then, it was expensive. It wasn't worth it, and plus, it became public knowledge. We try to keep things. Yeah, why do people go into arbitration? So it doesn't have to become public. Not everyone needs to know what's going on with everybody. So the Torah always very much would like that. However, if it does make it to court systems and the court does tell you have to testify, even in financial matters, you better come, or they could punish you, not just with a penalty, but they could hurt you. Sirasa Omer, today's Hayom Yom. Each day there's a message for each day. And it says that the story of Hasidim of the Alter Rebbe said that Hasidim of the Alter Rebbe were always counting. It says you should count your hours. If you count your hours, then your days will be counted. And you got to just make sure that today was better than yesterday. That is what it means to be a chassid. That every hour has an accounting. Every hour should be accounted for. You should know what you're supposed to be doing every hour. We should, not you. We. I include myself in that blessing or command. Okay, so in this week's Parshas Kedoshim, Rashi says this has the most mitzvahs in the Torah. Has more mitzvahs in this week's parsha than any other parsha. So it is impossible for us to get through the entire parsha. I'll just highlight a few things that I personally live with and think about, and Chassidim tell over very often. First of all, it says Kedoshim Tiyu. It says you shall be holy, and there's a machloket. There is a disagreement about Rashi and Ramban. They often disagree in Chumash, most notably with regards to whether the Torah is written in chronological order. If you remember, we had a class about that. Rashi says that Torah is it's not written in chronological order. Ramban says it is, and he's always making somersaults to figure out how everything's written in chronological order. But here's another place of a disagreement. What does it mean to be holy? The Torah says you have to be holy. First of all, what is holiness? Holiness, yeah, we say things all the time. He's a holy guy. He's a holy Jew. What does it mean, holy? Holy, the best definition that I've ever heard of holiness is transparency, which means I see godliness. When I look at this item, I look at this person, this situation, I see godliness piercing through, coming through. There's a transparency. So what does it mean, though? How do you allow how do you allow yourself to be transparent? So Rashi has one explanation. He says that holy means you should refrain from all sorts of immorality. Immorality is like the worst possible thing. That, number one, is what Jews love to do. There's certain, especially sexual immorality. We have a history looking all over Tanakh, all over our Bible, of sexual immorality. And Rashi says if you're able to stay clear of that, then Hashem considers you holy. And the Ramban says no, it's a little bit more refined than that. It means that a person shouldn't be so involved materialistically. They shouldn't be so materialistic. There's nothing wrong with having shoes. There's nothing wrong with having a nice suit, a nice clean suit, a nice beautiful dress, jewelry, good hair. I wouldn't know so much, but it's okay. It's okay if you have some. But is that a focus? If it becomes a focus, that becomes the end of everything. I want to have a car for the sake of having a car. I want to have a beautiful house for the sake of a beautiful house. Most of us that are on this it's not such a struggle for us. Probably we're a little bit more, I think, spiritually attuned, more spiritually plugged in. We find that we're not so attracted to material goods. Maybe we're not provided with a lot of material goods, so we're not attracted to it. Or we're just naturally, it's like, yeah, I can appreciate it, but it's not really our thing. However, I'm sure we all have moments. Yeah, I love potato chips. Oh man, I could eat potato chips. And I like YouTube. I think YouTube is amazing. I fall down what my father-in-law calls the rabbit hole of YouTube. Come out knowing how to fix a car, and I can tell you everything about tornadoes. You shouldn't be so involved materialistically, says the Rambam. And he even says you could even be disgusted. You could be a person that does Torah and mitzvot all the time and still be disgusting. And I think that's very true. I do believe that you find that in the Jewish world. Excuse me. I do believe you find that in the Jewish world. People who are, they garb themselves in looking great. They garb themselves looking very holy. They got a big shtreimel with a long payas. And they wear white and black and everything like that. And they are like the character of these people. Obviously not all of them. They don't always have to have long payas and the big shtreimel and everything like that. But the character is they might do all the Torah mitzvahs and keep Shabbos perfectly and but like you're around them, you feel like a worse person. Says the Ramban, that is not a holy person. Don't get sucked into such a person, such a situation. And also you should judge everybody favorably. But everything you should be involved when it comes to material items, says the Ramban, everything in moderation. When it comes to physicality, everything should be in moderation. And the classic Hasidic saying is that you don't look up to somebody physically. Yeah, you don't look at somebody's physical characteristics, physical qualities, and say, oh, I want more of those physical qualities. I want more materialism. You should say, I want less. There should be less of those things I want. However, when it comes to, you shouldn't emulate or try to look up to somebody who is materialistically well off and physically, all these different things. However, when it comes to someone spiritual, try to emulate them, try to look up to them. Believe me, it's much, much more difficult. But nevertheless, that is our job. The Rebbe says the reason why Moses was commanded to tell all of Israel this mitzvah. We might think this line, says the Rebbe, about being holy really only applies to what's called the B'nai Aliyah, very elevated people. Yeah, you got to live a life of being very spiritually in tune, spiritually. You can't, it's very hard to talk. You might think I shouldn't talk to the everyday businessman, the guy on Wall Street, special elevated souls. But it says, no, the Torah is saying that it's attainable for everyone, each according to their own level. And obviously Chassidus takes this to a whole different degree. A lot of religions steer clear of physicality. Yeah, you might think it might be best for me to go live in a shtetl and close myself off from the outside world, and I'll be able to be holy. I can it's the same thing as, let me go to Tibet and live on a mountaintop and not be involved in everything, have no phone, have no nothing, no connection to the outside world, so to speak, the rat race. I should have no connection, and therefore I'll be holy. Says Chassidus, that's a foolish way of thinking, because you have to be holy not only in the spiritual realms, but in the physical realms as well. In fact, the Torah is talking about being holy within the physical world with physical items. Having a phone is okay. And in fact, you should try to utilize the phone, but utilize it for a holy purpose. Find a way to teach Torah, whatever it is, connect with somebody. It doesn't always have to be with teaching Torah. It can be with just connecting with somebody. Chassidus says that very much. You should exercise. There's nothing wrong with exercise, but you should exercise with a purpose. You don't try to just feel good to feel good. We don't go on vacation for the sake of vacation. By the way, if you do that, if you just go to a vacation for the sake of vacation, I'm telling you, it's not going to be a good vacation. You probably won't really relax. And when you come back, it's such a different world that it's hard to transition back from a vacation. But if you go to a vacation with the mindset that I'm really trying to enliven myself, re-energize myself, rejuvenate with a W, you'll be able to come back with more energy, and that will be a proper vacation. There was a story of a bacher in yeshiva in the times of the Rebbe Rashab. So we're talking like, let's say 1920, 1921. And he was a very good student, and he would daven, he would pray the Shacharis prayer for many hours. One day, they noticed that after he was done praying for many hours, he would, at some point, he would take a nap. He wouldn't make it in time for the Talmud class that took place. He'd fall asleep. So one day they approached him and they said, what's going on with you? You pray. You're obviously like a very good guy, very diligent, you're very spiritually attuned, intelligent. Why do you fall asleep? And he says, I'll tell you, I pray for a very long time, and then I get hungry and I go and eat. And when I eat breakfast, I get so full from my breakfast that I have to take a nap. I get tired. So the Rebbe Rashab said to him, "This is the problem with you, is that you see breakfast as a intermediary, like an intermediate step between praying and Talmud class. But really, it's just one long road. It's not a stop. It's not like a break. It's not like you're getting off the highway. Your eating is just as holy as your davening. Your eating is just as holy as your Talmud, learning of Talmud. There shouldn't be any break. Yeah, you should. It says that's why they call the Jewish people are called soldiers. A soldier is a soldier when he wakes up, when he goes to sleep, when he goes to the bathroom, when he eats, anything he does physically, he's a soldier. It's all part of the mission. There's a mission the whole time. He's got to do all these things in order to accomplish his mission. And that's the proper approach. That's the Hasidic approach. And therefore, that's the proper approach to service of God. The Alter Rebbe says, practically, though, you should try to elevate yourself an hour a day, perhaps during the Shacharis prayer or before Shacharis. Think about what your purpose in life is. Why are you here? Who is God? Who am I talking to? What is my mission? And the Alter Rebbe talks about delayed gratification, that you should try to have what's called a skafia. You should hold back from gratification for a little bit of time. Yeah, if I have an urge to eat whatever it is, could you push it off for like 20, 30 minutes? You'll find that, at least I find by myself, it does. I mean, it's very difficult to do from time to time, obviously, but you find that you're able to tame the noise. You're able to lower the volume of the noise of the beast inside of you. It says that the Torah scholars wouldn't eat until around 11 a.m. You would think that back in the day, the sages, the scholars in the times of the Mishnah, they wouldn't eat until 11 a.m. You would think the scholars should eat 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. They need the energy that the ones that are teaching the world, teaching the communities, leading the communities. But no, there was a certain strength and a certain holiness and a certain quality by delaying their time for eating. Yeah, what do we have? What's it called? Intermittent fasting. I think that you find that people who intermittent fast, once they really get into intermittent fasting, they find they actually have more energy. You think they have less calories. No, but there's actually more energy to their day. I'm not saying it's across the board. And there's a bit of strength. There's also like a bit of strength, that the ability to hold back, to have more control of yourself, so you're able to accomplish much more, and you have more energy, more direction, and more clarity. And that all comes from a little bit of delayed gratification. I like the Bill Belichick line. Bill Belichick, the coach of the New England Patriots, I know I quote all the time. He would say, "There's no days off. We don't take any days off. There's no time off. We're always working, so to speak. We're always working." The Torah then goes on to talk a little bit about when you enter the land. It says, "And you plant a fruit tree for 3 years, it shall be orla, and you cannot eat it." For the first 3 years, the tree is called orla, which literally means blocked. You can't eat from it. from the time of the planting. Now, I'll tell you, it takes more than 3 years usually for a tree to grow. It wasn't such an issue. But why 3 years? Well, 3, for those of us that study Chassidus, 3 refers to the Shalosh Klipas Hatameis. There are 3 levels of complete impurity, parts of spirituality that cannot be elevated. They're so they're the opposite of godliness, so to speak, the opposite of godliness, whatever. Their whole essence and being is about the opposite of God. It's about obviously they're a creation of God. God did it on purpose. It's not like we don't believe in Satan or anything like that. They can't be elevated, and the way to elevate them, so to speak, is by staying away from them. That's called Shalosh Klipas Hatameis, the 3 shells of impurity. So it says the first 3 years of a tree's growth are connected to, Kabbalistically, they're connected to the 3 levels of Shalosh Klipas Hatameis, these 3 levels of impurity in Kabbalah, according to Kabbalah. And then it says in the 4th year, there's like a restriction. The 4th year, you can eat the fruit, but you have to eat it in Jerusalem. And that refers to klipa itself. Everything, physicality, everything's klipa. Klipa literally means a shell. Klipa can be elevated. It's parv, it's gray. It can go one way or the other. You could use it out. You can use out a phone. A phone is klipa. In and of itself, it's klipa. There's nothing wrong with it. But it could either be used out for its ultimate purpose, which is a vehicle to serve God, or it can be used for just itself to show off, like, look at how fancy of a phone I have. So in that case, it becomes Shalosh Klipas Hatameis, and you basically use it out in an improper way. If you use it in a proper way, then it becomes Kedusha, complete holiness. So it can go this one way or the other, and that shows on the 4th year of the fruit, the 4th year of the fruit tree, where you can eat the fruit, but you got to eat it in Jerusalem, in a holy place. And then after that, it moves into the realm of godliness. It says that Adam and Eve were created at the 9th hour, which was about 3 p.m. And actually, mitzvah and Shabbos that year that they were created, that day, that year, I guess you could say, was at 6 p.m. All they had to do was wait 3 hours, a full 3 hours for Shabbos to commence, and then it says that Mashiach would have come and everything would have been fine. Their commandment not to eat from the tree was only to refrain from eating it for 3 hours. And Kabbalah explains, so 3, we see, again, 3 is the magic number over here. 3, we see it's connected to Shalosh Klipas Hatameis, it's impurity. So the mitzvah, says Kabbalah, the mitzvah of not eating the tree for 3 years is a way of rectification for the tree that they sinned with, Adam and Eve. So we hold off for 3 years, connected to the 3 hours that they should have waited. Sometimes in Kabbalah, a minute could be a year, an hour could be a year. We see very often an hour is like a year for God. So we see hour and year is always connected. Moving on in the Torah, it speaks about, you shall not, in this week's parsha, you shall not curse a deaf person, nor place a stumbling block before the blind. It's a very famous, do not place a stumbling block before the blind. What is that talking about? So Rashi explains, what does it mean don't place a stumbling block before the blind? Explains that don't tell someone who's blind in a certain area of life bad advice in that area on purpose, so that you'll have a gain from it. Yeah, buy this field from this guy, says Rashi. And what you're really doing is you're really twisting yourself. You're really twisting him for your advantage. That is not holy. And that's really the deeper meaning of behind, do not place a stumbling block before the blind. Today's Chumash, today we talk about don't gossip, rechilis. Gossiping means when you hear one piece of information and then you carry it. You carry it in the marketplace, you carry it from town to town, dropping and telling everybody a little about what you heard. We love to gossip. You shall not gossip, says the Torah. I'm sorry, I just lost my place. You shall not stand over the blood of your friend. I am Hashem. So what does it mean, don't stand by the blood of your friend? Rashi explains, if you see a person dying and you have the ability to save him, you shall help him. You can't stand idly by. It's a famous Gemara, I believe in Sukkah or in Brachas, the famous Talmud. It says, what if two people are traveling? What if two people are in the desert and they get lost in the desert and they only have one bottle of water? Who should get the bottle of water? Or should they split it? And Rabbi Akiva says, this is Rabbi Akiva, who is mentioned in this week's Parsha. Well, according by Rashi, V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. In this week's Parsha, Rabbi Akiva says the greatest thing you should do is love your fellow. The general rule in the Torah is to love your fellow as yourself. Rabbi Akiva says you should drink it for yourself. You should take the bottle of water yourself. Don't share it with somebody else. Why is that? And that's what he says. That's the halacha. It says you should chai b'hem, you should live by the Torah and not die for the Torah. So therefore, make sure you do everything you can to stay alive. Let me just see something over here. And the Rebbe basically explains how could it be that Rabbi Akiva said such a statement. First of all, it's interesting that it's quoted in Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva basically knows like this. Are you a rabbi? If you're a Rabbi Akiva person, meaning you're a person who really lives for the benefit of another, it's just not going to happen. There's no way you're really going to bring yourself. I'm going to tell you the halacha. The halacha is, it's all in compassion. It's all part of his mantra, his motif of loving another person. Because what's going to happen? If you're really a Rabbi Akiva person and you're in such a situation, you're not going to drink it. You're going to do everything you can for the other person to drink it. And if that other person is not a Rabbi Akiva person, he should feel good about drinking it. He shouldn't feel bad. He should drink it himself. It's all like within the, what I'm saying? It's all within the Rabbi Akiva way of life, that I'm living for another person. I'm not living for yourself. I'm not living for myself. I'm living for somebody else. I want to, interestingly enough, in this, we don't listen to music right now until Lag BaOmer. I don't know if you guys know that. There's a halacha. We don't listen to music right now. There is a state of mourning, even though it's a joy that every day there's a mitzvah, but we're also in a state of mourning because the 22,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died every day. Some say the whole Sfira, during the whole Sfiras Omer until Shavuos, or it was up until Lag BaOmer. So some people, all of Klal Yisrael, all of Judaism, all of the Yidden, all the Jews in the world, don't listen to live music, especially mainly live music. And then some even take it further, like Chabad. We don't listen to music with instruments. We do listen to a cappella, unless it's nigunim, whatever, we have to throw that in there. We don't listen to music at least until Lag BaOmer, because the students of Rabbi Akiva died every year. And what did they die from? What died every single day during the Omer? Why is that? Because they didn't love one another, which is a wild statement considering it's Rabbi Akiva. What does it mean they didn't love one another? They did love one another, but the problem was how did they love somebody else? They said, I love this person so much, and it's such a pity that they're not doing the right thing. They're not doing it the way I think is right. They're not serving God the way I think is right. They're not helping this person the way I think they should be helping that person. And they all thought that way. And so animosity built up, and they started to basically hate each other. And because of that, Hashem set it up in a way that they died. They were killed. Well, the different explanations how they were killed and whatnot. Obviously, this is a very high spiritual level. To a certain extent, they should have known better. They polluted the whole concept of what Rabbi Akiva was trying to create. They did everything in the sake of love. I'm doing everything for the sake of what the right thing, but they didn't look at their own actions. They just said, yeah, we see that all the time. People say, what do you mean? I'm doing this for the sake of, I'm doing because this is this is the right thing. I'm doing it in the name of helping the poor, helping the weak. It could be that the weak and the poor person unfortunately, is a very dangerous person, and they're poor and they're weak because nobody wants to hang out with them because they're very dangerous and toxic and da 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 da. But nevertheless, just because for the sake of they're poor and they're weak, we help them, even though at the sacrifice of other people. Could happen. So therefore, we don't listen to music at this period of time. But I just wanted to mention, if you want to know why, perhaps there's no real concerts going on right now, especially until Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer, there's a big, everything's uplifted, everything's gone. The ban is lifted on Lag BaOmer, and we go all out. And then Chabad actually continues it until Shavuos, while I think most of the Jewish people, they don't. Once Lag BaOmer comes, they go back to listening to music. Which leads us up to the next pasuk that says, do not take revenge, don't bear a grudge, and v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Rashi quotes Rabbi Akiva that says that this is a klal gadol b'Torah, this is a fundamental law in Torah. And the Rebbe asks, why didn't we quote Rabbi Akiva? Perhaps we should have quoted Rabbi Akiva. Hillel. We should have quoted Hillel. Yeah, Hillel made the statement seemingly way before all this. During the times of the Romans, there was a lot of converts. Some said that like 10%. There's like a saying out there that 10% of the Roman Empire converted to Judaism. I'm not sure if that's exactly true, or 10% of the nobility converted to Judaism. Obviously, we have major contributors to the oral tradition. Most of the architects of the oral tradition are converts or descendants of converts, and a lot of them come from Rome. But what happened was one of the a kind of like a eccentric came to Shammai and said to him, I want to convert to Judaism on one condition. Can you teach me the entire Torah on one foot? And Shammai said, get the heck out of here. What are you doing, you eccentric? And then he goes to Hillel, and Hillel says, Mad al-Achsani. Hillel says, don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. And Hillel was basically speaking, which is slightly different than what Rabbi Akiva said, right? Yeah, what the Torah says over here. The Torah says over here, you should love everyone as yourself. And Hillel kind of said it this way. He said, don't do to others what you don't want to yourself. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn it. What's unique about this statement? You should love. What's the difference over here? So Hillel is kind of speaking practically. Don't do to others in a very simple way. Don't do to others what you don't want to yourself. That's attainable. That's attainable, and that's the first step. But the real depth over here. What does it mean to love another as yourself? And how is that the general rule of Torah? Is it all about love? All you need is love? Well, it depends on what your definition of love is, and what's Torah's definition of love, and what's the goal of love. What is love? Love comes from the word hav, which means to give. The whole idea of love, and the whole idea of mitzvahs is that it's not about me. It's about another person. With mitzvahs, it's about God. It's about my ability. We know mitzvah comes from the word safso, which means connection. It's my ability to connect to God. It's about God. I'm doing this for God. Half these things don't even make any sense. Really, by design. Kosher, paraduma, tuma, all these things. Yeah, we can explain Kabbalistically. We can appreciate on some level. And we say some level because not until Mashiach comes will we really be able to appreciate it like we appreciate a cup of coffee. The tuma and tahara is not as tangible to me as a cup of coffee, as potato chips, as this table, until Mashiach comes. The Torah testifies that. But I can appreciate, I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for God. Love your fellow means it's all about your fellow. It's not about me. It's about my fellow. And how do you learn to appreciate? You have to get to the depth of the person to appreciate the person, to really want to do for him what needs to be done. The Tanya explains that at the core of every Jew, especially, there's a godly soul. But the core of everything, there's a godly entity. Everything in this world, you can appreciate everything in this world because there's a godly entity. And if you can tap into that within yourself, my godly entity, live from that place. Yeah, I have an animal side for sure. That's just as much me as my godly side. But if I can tap into my godly side, then I'll start looking at the world I'll start appreciating everything. I'll start looking at everything else's godly side, and to live from there. So everything else is commentary. Everything else is about live. It's all about living, not for yourself. It's all about living for someone else, living for God. Just looking through the there's actually a saying in the Torah, it says in the Torah that you should hate your fellow who's not like you. How could you say that? How could you say you should hate somebody? Well, the point is you're not hating their entire being, their entire essence. Yeah, cancel culture. We're not trying to cancel somebody. If I disagree, it says that the second temple was destroyed based on sinas chinam, baseless hatred. What does that mean, baseless hatred? It means there was one thing I didn't like about you. There's one thing I didn't like about you. Sorry, I have allergies. There's one thing I didn't like about you, and therefore I cancel you completely. I don't like anything else about you. Yeah, we see that in politics nowadays. There's one thing I disagree with, therefore I have to disagree with everything about you. It's baseless. But says that was the problem back then. But what is it? So the Torah says you should hate. There are times you should hate somebody. But what are you hating? You're hating a certain part of them, meaning that there's other parts of them, but there's a certain way of acting. I hate that act. I hate that animalistic side. I have that within me too. I hate that part of me. We just came after Pesach. I think it's illustrated very well on Pesach. On Pesach, you have the four sons. Echad chacham, echad rasha, echad tam, echad she'eno yodei lishol. You have the intelligent one. You have the sitting next to him is the rasha, is the evil one, the bad one. Then you got the simple one, and then you got the one that doesn't know how to ask. Any of you who are into gematria, into numerology, the gematria of echad, it says that each one, it doesn't say there's a smart one, and then there's a rasha, and then there's a blah. It says one rasha, one smart one, it says one before them, echad, which is like a weird way, just like here's a rasha, comma, a chacham, comma, a simpleton, comma. Why? One rasha, one this, one that. Echad is gematria 13. The numerical value of echad is 13. Jews love the 13th floor. If you live that, we would all live on the 13th floor. We love 13. 13 times 4, there are 4 children, is ben, which means a child, a son, in the singular. And what they're saying is all of these 4, you might see 4 of them, but they're all one. It's actually all one child. There wasn't 4 children sitting there. There was one child sitting there. And that one child had a part of him that was a chacham. Yeah, we have the part that we do believe and we do appreciate godliness. And then we got the part of us that I have an animalistic drive and I love that. And then we got the part of us that doesn't, I approach God simply. Look, it's just like beyond my ability to comprehend and to understand. I'm just going to keep it simple. And then we have times in our lives where we're like, I don't even know what's going on over here. I don't even know which way to go. I don't know if I believe in this. I don't know if I believe in that. I don't know if I want to be a godly person now. I don't want to be an animal guy right now. It's all part of one entity. And so we say we hate someone. We don't hate somebody, says the Torah. There's a certain part that you hate, and the rasha, the evil one, the one that you hate, so to speak, sits next to the chacham, and he sits between the chacham, the intelligent one, the godly one, and the simpleton. That's who he should be. He can't be the one that doesn't know how to ask. You can't have anyone. He's got to turn to somebody. You got to sandwich that guy who's he's like going off the deep end over there. You got to sandwich him. He's got to be able to turn to one who may have answers, and then sometimes he's like, I'm not interested in an answer. I just want to turn to a person that I can emulate, a person that just does, it just is, doesn't think, he doesn't get stuck. He's just like, I just do my thing. It feels right. I don't know, it seems right, feels right. It's got to be sandwiched in between that person. We have to have that in our own life. We have to somehow sandwich that part of us with learning and then simple faith, and just, and then you bounce around in between that. I always thought that was a great line. The Torah speaks about, maybe I'll conclude over here. The Torah speaks about the holiness of the land. The Ramban explains that when Joshua came to the land of Israel, that's when the land of Israel became holy. And how did they gain the land? Through conquering the land. And the Gemara says when the Babylonians came and conquered the land of Israel and exiled us down to the Persian Empire, Babylonia to the Persian Empire, right? Ultimately, Persia took over Medina, Achashverosh, yeah, you got all these guys. The holiness, the land of Israel was barren once again. It lost its holiness. Says the Ramban, how did we get back to the land of Israel? It was a gift. Darius gave it to us as a gift. 70 years, 70 years went by from when Babylonia, when we were kicked out of Israel, till we made it back. There were 70 years. At the end of that 70 years, Darius said, okay, here's a gift. I'm giving a gift back to the land of Israel, giving a gift back. So that therefore, when it was a gift, and the holiness of the land returned. Therefore, when the Romans came and conquered the land of Israel and kicked us out, exiled us from the land of Israel, it never lost its holiness, because you can't take away a gift. The way they tried to uproot it was through conquering, but we didn't acquire it through conquering. And therefore, holiness today, Israel still remains. The holiness of the land of Israel still remains. And that's part of, I believe, why the Ramban holds as a mitzvah to live in the land of Israel. Okay, it's about 9 o'clock. I think that's pretty good. Anybody have any questions? Oh, I have a chat over here. Oh, okay. Any questions over here? Oops. It's a bit of a loaded
Good stuff, Elia.
Yeah, it's a loaded parsha. We got through like very. I mean, you got to go to Rabbi Schneer's class. He's going to talk more about the parsha. Him and I were discussing there's just too much to talk about in this week's parsha. So, but believe me, I didn't like going to classes where there were tremendous amounts of information. Yeah, I can appreciate it once in a while, but like if I could just have one idea, I always like walking with one idea. Oh, that idea connected with me. I don't know what else is going on in the class, but that I'm just gonna live with that idea, think about that idea. If you come into my class, just walk away. If there's one thing, just walk away with one. Don't worry about everything else. You can always ask me a question. What did you say? Hopefully I'll remember. Okay. If there's no other questions.
Rabbi.
Yeah, man.
I just think that you have great hair. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I do. I was thinking about putting something over. I really do. I really do. I actually like being bald. I can't stand hair being in front of my plate. Like I know it sounds funny. Well, thank God I'm already married and whatever. It's cool. Or whatever. I like being bald. Except I actually got I got sunburned for the first time this past year on the top of my head. I didn't know that could happen, but that could happen. I just got to get a bigger yarmulke. That's basically what I need to do. One of those Bukharian yarmulkes. Once I go really on. Okay. Talking too much. All right, everybody. If you had no questions, obviously just text me anytime you want. It's good to be back.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Good to see everybody.
Yashikoach.
All right, brothers, sisters. We'll see you later.
Thank you.